Welcome to the Casual Adventure Notes podcast, the Ken podcast, lazy, easy listening about little life's adventures and lesson.
And lesson. This thing just came up when I was trying to grab it. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Let's try to put it on without breaking.
All right. Hello, everyone. How is everyone going? We do have one thing today. Is it? It's me. Want to grab that?
Yes. Well, we got to mention our names, but hopefully.
I'm Duz.
And I'm Debbie.
If you're watching this episode instead of one of the earlier episodes, well, first of all, welcome. It's fine because these aren't intended to be listened in any order. It's quite casual and whatever.
Sorry, I'm just adjusting to the new mic, yeah?
Yeah, it's wireless. Why? What's wrong?
So I'm just fixing the fluffy bit of it. Anyway, why don't you choose a number? We are doing 101 things I learned in psychology school.
59.
That was quick. Take a bit longer to choose. 59. All right, so this one is titled Bronze Beats Silver. Our happiness in the aftermath of a competition is shaped not only by our performance, but by how close it was to a better or worse outcome. Studies of the facial expression of Olympic medalists have found that third place winners tend to exhibit more happiness than second place winners, while the silver medalists may be haunted by the fraction of a second that kept him from winning gold. The bronze medalist can imagine the fraction of a second that might have sent him home without a medal at all. Okay.
That kind of makes sense. Like, I kind of understand the concept of like people go for gold. So when you're going for gold and if you're so close to it, I can imagine it being that much disappointing versus if you were further away from getting gold, then you kind of like, okay, there's actually a lot more I can do to get there.
I think this goes back to the whole sort of comparison is the thief of joy. And in this situation, like you said, being like that split second or that close to winning gold is just much more heartbreaking. Whereas the comparison of winning bronze, you could be like, well, I could have won nothing at all. But I get to be on the podium and I get this medal. So, it's all sort of relative. But it is funny though, because, silver is better than bronze based on a pure ranking perspective. But I guess on a more psychological happiness, like I said, it's actually, you're better off winning bronze.
Yeah.
Well, is bronze, because gold and silver are actually medal types, aren't they? They're like on the periodic table?
I didn't do well in science. No.
I don't know. I don't think is bronze an element? I don't know.
And check for you. If
Silver and gold is definitely. And that makes sense because like jewelry stores sell silver, gold based jewelry. You never hear anything about bronze.
It says why is gold and silver both do not require another metal in its ability to prevent rust. Bronze is mostly copper, but won't oxidize and turn green like pure copper.
Oh, okay. So bronze is copper. They just call it bronze.
It sounds like it. And I think the first Google searches that comes up, apparently when people are curious about this and probably knows more about science than you and I, is why bronze and not copper? Because I think copper must be the direct metal.
Yeah.
And I think they're saying that gold and silver by nature doesn't rust, but copper can. So I think bronze being a combination of copper and whatever prevents it from oxidizing.
So bronze is made up of copper and something.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not called copper. It's not
pure copper.
Although I can't imagine the gold and silver metal being pure. They must mix something into it.
I think they do.
To get it hard. I think gold is actually very naturally soft. So they always add something. That's why you have like levels of gold, like 18 karat, 24 karat. Because they have to mix something else to harden the element. But you don't really see much people. I don't really think anyone sells copper jewelry, do they? It's always silver or gold.
And randomly rose gold.
I guess that's sort of part of the gold family. They must mix. Maybe that's mixed with copper
Potentially.
because that has sort of almost a copperish, brownish, pinkish undertone to the gold.
Let's Google what is rose gold. If I type that in, the first thing that pops up is rose gold is an alloy made from a combination of pure gold and copper. You're right. Look at you. So you didn't fail science.
No, I didn't fail, but stopped doing it. I also wasn't that great at it. But that was just more luck and just, color analysis. And then what's white gold made out of? Silver and gold?
White gold. White gold was originally developed to imitate platinum, a naturally white metal. White gold is usually an alloy containing about 75% gold and about 25% nickel and zinc.
Oh, yeah, zinc. Zinc is silverish in color.
I don't know.
Okay. Yes, because what was that? What was it imitating? What was the
platinum?
Platinum. Yeah, because platinum is the most. I think it's the most expensive precious metal.
Why is that?
I think it just comes back to supply and demand. I think it's just more rare for
What is
to
platinum?
source platinum.
Platinum is a chemical element. It has symbol PT and atomic number 78. It is a dense, malleable, ductile, highly unreactive, precious, silverish white something.
Okay. It's also, I think it's
a metal.
It's very incredibly, it says malleable, so it must not be.
Everything's malleable to a certain degree, no?
Diamond isn't malleable.
Why is it rare? Platinum is rare, precious metal prized for its density, rare appearance, and resistant to corrosion, often used for jewelry.
Yeah. I just know platinum is the most expensive, and I think it's white gold, yellow gold, silver. I think rose gold is probably before silver, but I'm not sure if it's more expensive than white gold.
I think you're right. I think it's just
although white gold, sometimes I think you might as well just buy silver because they look very similar to the naked eye, but you're paying a lot more for white gold versus silver. But I guess silver tarnishes. Yeah. Anyway, enough about metals. I don't really go back to thinking about the periodic table in high school days because that was not pleasant.
All right, we'll dive into our main course then today. Not really about metal, and I can't really think of a segue, but I will tell you what I thought about or what recent story. So there's a lot of kids in my life at the moment, just friends are having kids, families are having kids. They're running around and stuff like that. And it's quite interesting perceiving children when you're an adult. And you've heard this saying before, kids are mean.
More like they're honest, which happens sometimes to be mean. If, they'll just be direct. There's no filter, which is honesty, isn't it?
Yes. So there's a famous thing where people just say,
sorry.
People just say kids are mean, and everyone kind of knows. And I think they think what you think. But then I really thought about it, and I'm like, kids are mean. And then it made me think of all the times I was mean. First of all, I am confused how as humans we learnt empathy, how to share, how to be polite and diplomatic in public situations. Because I've been watching these like toddlers running around and they get so selfish with their toys, as an example. And I'm like, when do they learn to share? They're picky about their food. They really like someone one day and then they hate them the next. Like, it's quite fascinating to watch and observe, right? Just kids interacting. And then you're like, how do you turn into a full-grown adult that can like...
Well, it's like, I guess, I mean, kids are really just, in most cases, in a bubble. They were literally in a bubble in the womb. You know, no interactions. And then even for most of their early life, they're kind of at home, you know, and all they sort of interact is with parents and I guess sometimes have siblings. But yeah, you kind of always talk about like people, even adults that live in bubbles and them just not being very self-aware of what's happening in the world or in other people's lives and stuff. And I guess that's like almost the same as a kid because they are growing up in a very generally confined, boxed environment until they venture out into the world. You know, they learn about, you know, like you said, empathy and, you know, other people's situations. Because I think like I was definitely like very self-centered and selfish growing up as a kid. And then I was out in the real world and realized, you know, how fortunate sometimes I had things. That's kind of when I learned to be, you know, what I am today. Especially with, what was I going to say? Especially with
sharing, being diplomatic.
Yeah, being diplomatic was one thing. And I think part of that is like, yeah, you like don't want to, after you have experiences of people hurting your feelings, you then realize you know, that there are things that you should say to, you know, things that you could better paraphrase to people, you know, when you're giving them, you know, criticism, constructive criticism, and then there's sometimes that you just don't say at all. And you say it behind closed doors with like your partner.
Yeah.
Talk about people behind the back versus directly in their face. I don't know. That doesn't sound as good. That sounds as bad, but I guess, you know, what people don't know won't kill them, you know, won't hurt them, sorry, not kill them.
I think there's like this unspoken thing where people say, don't judge others and, you know, be respectful and stuff like that. But I think there is a such thing as a safe space within a very small, intimate circle of people where you might say stuff, but you don't, they know your real intentions and what you really think. So like you wouldn't take it as literally as if you would say it in public and out of context. It like provides room for misinterpretation.
Yeah, I find that the less you say, the better in life in general. You know, whether it's at work, whether it's in friendship groups and stuff, because you know, I guess that's a very risk-averse approach where, you know, at some point you're going to say something that might offend someone. And it might not be even about them. It might be certain views, politically, religion, that sort of stuff. But I guess it also depends on the group of friends. The closer you are, the more honest you are. And I think like we talked in the previous podcast, sometimes the more direct you are with them, because, you know, like at the end of the day, like they mean well, their intentions are good, or it's this kind of playful like banter where you kind of take the mickey out of each other, and it's just like, you know, you go home without any hard feelings.
Yeah. Although I will add, I think it's important to still articulate your opinions and views and call people out. So it's not always necessarily the best to say less, because you also should be, I don't know if accountable is the right word, but you should try to educate others when others may not know, because you might let things slide when you shouldn't let it slide.
It depends on who the person is. If it's someone that I see regularly and I have to see regularly, then yes, I would probably then make the conscious effort to like you said, educate or like raise, things that are, that as part of just general, human improvement and becoming a better person.
Yeah.
But sometimes the people where I'm like, I'm going to have to deal with them. I don't want to start any trouble. And I only see them like once a year, like whatever, their significant other or their parents can probably pick them up and then that's their responsibility. So going back to kids and stuff, like, yes, they are generally brutally honest. But I also like talking to kids and getting their opinions on things because, like you said, they're very like, they'll just tell you straight to your face. And in most cases, I don't really get offended by it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird if you get offended by a kid, to be honest.
I think there's like probably like a portion, like there's a part of my brain where I'm like, well, does their opinion really matter? Because they're only a kid. They don't really know that much. So they're just basing it on what they know and their knowledge, very limited in most cases because they just haven't got the life experience. So I don't take full offense to that. But, it's, but then, if you want like a dose of, what's it called? A dose of reality. Sometimes, you can be like, do you think this outfit looks good? Or, do you think, what's your favorite cuisine? And, I like this one. Do you like this? It's fun to sort of chat to them because, they're not going to be politically correct.
It's a good to provide like fresh perspective or like a unfiltered perspective on things to take into considerations. But I do think, like it's a perspective to be considered. But if you're getting offended by it, like, ooh, maybe check yourself. So leading into the story that I want to tell today about being a kid, lots of stories that I can tell about the kids I observed today, but they're learning. So all I can do is like tell my story and how mean I realized I was. And this came up because I was hanging out with a friend once, like a childhood friend. And I was like, I was really curious about, we were talking about this girl that we mutually know from school who used to be kind of like a mean girl in school. But she's grown up to be such like a well-rounded person who's like the sweetest person, would do so much for others, quite caring, is so aware of like social things that are incorrect and like proactively tries to correct them and make the world a better place, like full 180. And then the girl I was talking to is like quite good friends with her now. And apparently like they were out one day and mean girl from school goes, I was kind of mean in school, wasn't I? And she's like, my friend was like, oh, so you knew? She's like, I didn't know, but I know now. Like thinking back to it, I was actually quite mean. And then they like psychoanalyzed it and realized like, it probably just came from like a level of insecurity and not knowing better. And then it made me reflect on like, I was also probably a mean girl to a pool of people. And I probably didn't mean it or intend it, but I still did. And there's like a few stories that stand out that still kind of sticks with me that I feel quite bad about, to the point where I'm like, I do sometimes do that thing where it comes in my thought and then I think, should I reach out to that person to apologize or was it like not a meaningful thing to them? So one of the stories that I can think of is, this is back in primary school. So I was like maybe 10, maybe 11, I don't know. Kid, right? And I liked almost everyone. I like chatting to everyone and getting to know everyone and hanging out with everyone, right? But in school, you tend to have like your core group of friends, and everyone kind of knows that. And I had my core group of friends, and I remember one time like all my core group of friends were like off school or on excursion. It just happened to be like everyone in that group were off that day, so my friends went around to hang out. But it wasn't like I wasn't friends with everyone. So then I just like hung out with a different group of people. But to their face, and I don't remember the conversation around it, I called them my half friends. I was like, oh yeah, like think of a name, Blossom. Like, oh, Blossom and the other people aren't here today. So Jessica, I'm gonna hang out with you because you're like my half friend, my backup friend. Like I said that to them, like multiple people. Funniest thing is I know most of them didn't get offended. They didn't care. And they just let me hang out with them. And then the next day I went back to my friends, and I don't know if they said anything about me afterwards, but like it was pretty like wild. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people actually also got offended in that group, because then I would like refer to people as like our friends and stuff like that. Because I remember the reason it stuck with me is because I remember at the end of that school year, one of the guys who were in that group as well, like wrote me a Christmas card. Do you remember when everyone used to write Christmas cards and share them in class, like with all your classmates?
Yeah.
It's so cute.
I remember I was really lazy. I just wrote like 2-person from me, and that was it. I didn't even bother.
Oh, I loved it because I think it's the sweetest thing in the world, even back then. So I used to personalize every single note for every single classmate.
Well, you were probably a better friend than I was then.
Yeah, maybe that's why people like let me get away with being so mean sometimes. But I remember I got a card and it sat with me because this guy goes, let's call him Jay. Jay was like saying like all these nice things, and at the end, sorry that we could only ever be as much as a half friend. And then I was like, it is pretty funny. But I read that, and then like a couple of years later, it kind of stuck with me, and I didn't realize why. And a couple of years later, I'm like, you know what? He said that because I said it, but I said it, and that's actually quite mean. Like, how rude is it to actually call someone a half friend, a backup friend, because you're basically saying you're not good enough to hang out with me on a daily basis. I only choose you when there's like not a better option. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think saying it out loud is probably a bit mean. I think implicitly, like, you kind of do that all the time because sometimes you're not in the same class as your friends. And so when group projects or group work, you'll just go to what you call them half friends, but your other people that you know or are closest to that is in that classroom. So it's really a normal thing to do. It's just that you don't really state it. So you're a bit brazen to say that. Or you'll just have very witty, mature humor, which was a bit advanced for high school.
No, primary school, like 10, 11.
Primary school.
But this is the problem, right? It's one thing, because you're right. Like, everyone does have their kind of core circle of friends that they prioritize, but they still have other friends. And I think counterpart friends know that, right? And it's like a mutual understanding. But I think when I was 10 or 11, I genuinely thought my half friends were backup friends. Like, that's how I perceived them. And it's just so wrong to think like that. And I was like, so that's why I was like, kids are genuinely mean, because that's not a feeling I would have now. Now I'm like, I either like you or I don't like you. I don't think of you as a backup. Like, I would never treat a person as a backup and think that in my head. Like,
maybe you don't think about it directly, but in some ways you probably, if you had a gun to your head and like rank your friends from top, from number 1 to number 10, you could probably do it. But obviously you're not going to do it mean, and you don't want to have to like feel bad for being like, oh yeah, I'm closer with this one, or this person's a better friend than that one. So you could still do it. It's just you don't do it because there's really no value, and it just probably causes more guilt and anxieties.
Maybe
I reckon you could.
We probably are all mean. So we're all still really mean. We just like put it trapped in a box or something. You know what that made me think of though, as you were saying that? This is probably going to show our age, but there was a social media platform called MySpace.
Oh yeah, ranking your friends.
Yeah. So MySpace, for those who never used it, it was a social media platform before Facebook, before Instagram, before LinkedIn, where you had like a profile about you. You had friends on it. You can like talk to each other, post in public forums. People reply. People look at your photos. Like everything you think social media is. But some of the original features in it one of them was you could display who your friends are. So on your profile, there's like a module or box that has a list of your friends, but it highlights like the top 8. I think it was top 8. I don't know if you could control how many, but the normal number that people will show is like your top 8 friends. and you manually chose who would appear there and in that order. And there used to be this level of politics and tension within friendship groups and schools where how you would place your friends in that friends list. Are you in so-and-so's friends list? What rank are you in said friend list? Did you see that Amy moved Sonic out of her friends list? Like, it was like the talk of the town every time something changed in those friends lists. But I remember like getting obsessed, like, I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but like it was unreasonable how happy it made me when I made a friend's top 8 that I also thought was a friend.
Well, it feels good to be well liked or be important in someone else's life. I never had a MySpace account. I think I just like sort of creeped in the background of other people's. Maybe it was the fear of not being on anyone's list.
You could hide it.
But yeah, I mean, that's right. Like, I mean, I guess Facebook doesn't really do any ranking, although it's more like an algorithm of who you interact most with, and then that person's feed would probably appear a lot.
Yeah.
But maybe they removed that whole ranking because it was just adding on, societal pressures and wasn't great for people's mental health. Which probably might have been the case.
No, it is true. It was in a upcoming time of the digital age. So like at the time it was a harmless feature, but in hindsight it was realized that it was actually quite harmful to people's mental health, which is a lot of social media in general. So I think people realized that in the last couple of years. So now there's kind of like more attention put on that. So when digital apps and digital platforms and stuff have filters and stuff like that, people call them out quite often if they're building things that encourage negative behaviors, habits, or could cause mental health issues. So now there's like options on Instagram where you can hide the likes, for example. So then you're not fixated on the number of likes you have. That's why there's like, especially with AI coming up, there's like big warning now that if something is perceived to be AI generated, it says it like on there so people don't misinterpret that as something that would be obtainable in real life if it's been artificially produced.
Like you could say the same about like, if you follow like really rich people and they post all about shopping stuff, like that's also unattainable for the everyday person, but that's still real.
Speaking of unobtainable, I heard a story on a podcast the other day, which I thought I kind of knew this was a thing, but like just hearing about it from a trustworthy source made me, I don't know, there was just something about realizing that it was real made me laugh. So there is a groups of people, who are social media influencers that their whole brand is expensive things. So they like participate in expensive leisure activities. They wear expensive clothes. I was going to try and use the fancy word.
Apparel.
Yeah, but then I couldn't pronounce it, so that I just fell back to clothes.
Mm.
So there's this group of people and they'll have like a group chat, all of them, and they all like profit from this because this is their job and they're not actually wealthy rich. So they can't afford to live this lifestyle that they make perceived online. So for example, the story I heard was this group of influencers, they all got foot fungus and everyone's like, how did they all get foot fungus at the same time? Turns out they were sharing Gucci tights, like stockings, because they couldn't all afford to like buy Gucci stockings, and this is when they were really trendy and in. So like they all chipped in to buy one, and then they had a schedule when they would wear it and post photos of it. So then it like was perceived that like everyone had these Gucci stockings, but there was like one shared amongst all of them, and then obviously one had grotty toes, and then gave every other person that wore it afterwards foot fungus.
Gross. Was that how they got sort of uncovered? Like,
it just validated. Like, I think a lot of people who are quite savvy online kind of picked up on these groups existing. But yes, this is like, I think people figured out whose group this was. Another story was like how it's also common for like these rich influencers to stay in really nice hotels and like vlog their experience there and stuff like that. And then it's like for some reason they always go to the same hotels. And the way that works is so-and-so goes, I want to produce content at this hotel, who wants to chip in? And then they'll have like 2-hour sessions divided on that day for everyone to come in, take their photos, take their vlogs, and then go home. Crazy, but gotta like honestly appreciate the hustle and grind.
savvy for having to, I guess, create an illusion that is, feels authentic and passable, more importantly.
Yeah.
But I feel like now it's sort of like, I guess the whole concept of buying, like, one and sharing. Wasn't that movie about these like girls, those sisterhood of traveling pants, and they share like one pair of jeans that magically fit all of them?
I haven't watched that.
It's with Blake Lively and a couple other like well-known female sort of teenager actresses. Anyway, but nowadays you can sort of rent everything. Like there's a lot of those sort of store, like online sort of clothing stores where you like rent the dress or shoes or bag for a day, and then you wear it for an event or something, and then you return it.
But that's a legitimate business.
Yeah, I'm saying that's like that. I guess you could use that as if you're aiming for that type of content of living the luxe life. Like you could easily sort of do that. But it kind of goes back to the whole thing around. There's a saying around like, people that are really truly rich or wealthy, like wealth whispers. Because someone that could be really wealthy could just be looking like the everyday Joe or whoever, rocking Uniqlo pants and then the Airism tee that everyone has, whereas those that are just in full designer gear, might be like living paycheck to paycheck. So you really can't trust what's on social media. And I feel like that saying's been said so many times, but we still always get trapped into, making that assumption based on social media. I do the same thing as well. And it always ends up getting revealed because there's been so many stories you hear like, oh, the person that everyone thought was wealthy, their house has been foreclosed on, they were accruing all these debts, they were just like living beyond their means. And I think there was like one in the US around like, and I think the person ended up like, there was a family, and I think the husband ended up committing suicide because he just like got into so much debt for them to maintain this lifestyle and image. But, to the public world, everyone thought they were really, really rich, but he was just accruing all this debt, running these sort of scams. And then he just got to a point where, he was going to essentially, be all was going to be revealed. So he took his own life, which is really sad. But it's, it seems to just be a very reoccurring story. People you think are really rich end up being not rich.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then there's the people that are really rich is the ones that
they
probably don't even have a social media account.
They don't gloat about it, right? Like I think people who have true wealth don't, like they wouldn't even think that it's something that they should brand because it's just a part of their life.
But then there's also people that are really rich, but also rich well. There's actually this whole thing on TikTok about there's this like girl who does like reviews on rich people, and she's like the rich people that rich well. And
what is that?
And the idea is that like they have really good taste, like they're actually wealthy. And they use their money well in terms of how they dress and how they live their life. I can't remember what her her tag or name was, but that's sort of her whole sort of TikTok channel.
That's her content.
Riching, how to rich, not how to rich, rather, who riches well and who doesn't.
Rating. It's literally rating and judging.
It's like this girl.
How people spend their wealth.
Yeah, it's like this girl, she knows, like, she's got this nice, I know, like, diamond necklace. You know, she's actually, there's another girl that does literally just content on like rating people's like jewelry and being like, yeah, this person is like, you know, got good taste. But anyway, I don't know. How do we end up on talking about
I don't remember the segue, but it's interesting. Although, you know what I find really fascinating is like people's strong opinions about influencers online. Because like I know like the original appeal for online personalities is like that authentic aspects of it. Like I'm pretty sure that was the drawn, especially in the early days. But as that space has become oversaturated, a way to stand out is to like strategically craft who you are. And like play into algorithms and stuff like that. And then essentially you're operating like any commercial brand or company would be, but just at an individual level, right? And I find it funny that it's just not repeating, but it's just falling into not authentic content anymore. Not everyone, sorry, but the biggest successful ones are the ones that like play the business card onto it because it's turned into a business because it's a way to make money. And what's funny is how people, the general public and people online discuss these people and judge them and all the keyboard warriors around it, because I feel like some of the biggest discords that happen online or about online personalities, it's always bigger than them, but they just use them as a speaking point, right? So, for example, I won't talk about it because I think it's been talked about way too much, but there's a very popular couple on TikTok that went pretty viral for negative reasons in the last couple of weeks. And it was basically people being annoyed at the male in the relationship for not doing enough. And all the comments and discussion was about them specifically and saying that, you know, she deserves better, she should leave. And then they turned around and started talking about how like her choosing to stay and her choosing to tolerate it for this long, like that says something about her as well. And realistically, the commentary is not about them. It's actually bigger than them. But they just happen to be in the crossfire and the trigger to like have these angry conversations.
Yeah, maybe that's sort of a martyr or being an example of in some way. I think, yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to judge other people's relationships.
They don't know the full story. Like TikTok and social media
and every
is just
relationship
like,
is also very different.
you just don't know. And I think it's unfair. I mean, I think, again, it's kind of weird because like part of their brand is to put a part of their life online and to get like comments and stuff like that. But I think, yeah, this like interaction, you don't really want it, but I don't know if it's okay that it's sort of part of, definitely not to this scale. I think this scale is way too much. But it made me think about, I'm like, this is what like traditional celebrities cop. Like people do this. It's just not directly on them. I mean, they do it directly to them now with Instagram and Twitter and stuff being accessible. But even then, it's not always them personally managing the account. So there's no guarantee that they're seeing it. But I think what's very different about traditional celebrities who do well versus these individual influencers online is these individual people are normally everyday people who are just like trying to get somewhere and they don't necessarily have the same access and money to learn how to navigate being in the public eye, whereas at least for traditional celebrities, they generally get like media training and have access to the right resources and hopefully with the right support network, learn how to navigate all these things. PR training, like all that stuff. So
well,
it's just like
the old age about having money or not having money and having support and stuff. Yeah, you
Mm.
covered a lot of things. You talked about that relationship, which kind of was a little bit random. So it's like, was it about the relationship and judgment of relationship, or how does it relate to
No,
what you're
just
trying
about internet conversation.
Well, I
Because you
guess
were
so.
talking about how people judge like rich people and that becomes content, and then these rich people get found out, like, and then it becomes like drama and stuff like that. But then if I link it back to like my original story around how this like group of people like purposely rally and come together to stage the rich thing as part of their brand in order to make money and make a business from being an influencer online, and then them being caught out for not being authentic and getting all this backlash. Like, it's interesting because what are the people really commenting about, and is it really fair to the influencers who are just like trying to make a living as well? Like, they don't really have the resources and the learnings to be able to navigate that. You know what I'm going to find really, really interesting? Like, we already see the train wrecks of celebrity, like child stars, and how a lot of them are kind of not as mentally stable as they could be in adults. With all these like blown up influencers, especially on TikTok, they're all really young when they blew up. So it'll be interesting to see what they're like in 10 years. Because I don't know what the learnings are and what their support circle's like. But
Well,
anyways,
just because even like, yeah, child celebrities, like traditional celebrities, have had their fair share of issues, whether it's with alcohol, drugs, family relationships, that sort of stuff. Maybe at least with but I guess that's I guess in some ways being an influencer. I wonder whether like when there's going to be like a culling. There's such a saturation of everyone wanting to be an influencer. It's like when everyone wanted to become a personal trainer and then everyone would become a makeup artist.
hello? I think your mic stopped working. Can I look at your mic? So David's mic just stopped. I got him a new mic. Got to charge. That's what happens when you use a wireless microphone. You have to remember that it's charged. That's okay. We'll wrap up and we'll share a microphone, I guess. So to wrap up, we'll go through our dessert. So dessert is just our gratitude of the week. It's an intentional moment that we're taking to appreciate the sweet moments of our lives. So things we're thankful for, just small or big. Something I'm thankful for. I am thankful for... This is more what I appreciate rather than, I guess I'm still thankful for, but there's been recent people who have confided me and feel safe enough to tell me stuff, and I'm so honored for that. Like, I actually find it such a privilege when people put trust in me to confide in me in issues they're having in their life, or if they want to vent or talk things out, because I think it makes them vulnerable, because sometimes it's about like them and perceiving them in a negative light. And I feel so honored when my friends come to me and get that vulnerable with me. So I'm grateful for that.
This is so awkward. I am grateful. I think actually just seeing a lot more represent with sort of the rise of sort of popularity of Korean dramas, music and everything. It's actually really great to see Western society become more embracing of that. I think, hopefully the sort of younger sort of Gen Z and what's the next generation? Alpha, that are sort of obviously of Asian background sort of benefit from this. So it's really great to see that all happening, and I hope it just keeps sort of going along this track. But yeah, I don't know, I just had that random thought because, every time I sort of go into Netflix, I always see top 5, top 10 shows, and it's always like a couple of Korean dramas or, shows or movies with sort of an Asian lead. So really good to see that, and yeah, keep it coming.
The last segment is meal prep. So these are goals coming up that we want to call out and be accountable for, or things that we're looking forward to that we're doing soon or in the future. My one is a little while away, but I am excited for it because I was thinking about it the other day. I'm going to see a musical called Hadestown soon, which is about Hades, the Greek god. It's like based on the underworld. I don't know the full storyline, to be honest. I assume it's a retelling of like his stories, but in a modern way and with music. But I'm pretty excited to watch that because I have a new appreciation for how stories depict Hades. Because I feel like growing up, Hades was always seen as the bad guy, but there's all these people like reinterpreting it and writing stories about him, and the fact that he's like the king of the underworld and what that actually truly entails. And sometimes it's being looked at in a positive light, which I kind of like. So I'm interested to see what this Hadestown is about and how they like interpret him.
What was the thing again? Looking forward to, well, last year's was really quite sort of a busy work-wise, and so it's been sort of a lot less consuming work-wise. So I'm looking forward to enjoying more non-work things, and whether it's trying new restaurants, or hanging out with family, friends more, or just trying to do stuff that brings me joy and pleasure. And that sparks my sort of interest. So, yeah, I know it's sort of already April, which is actually kind of crazy. That's already, I guess in another month or two. Well, in 2 months, it's going to be pretty much a half year point. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to, what this year brings to me that isn't work related and fun.
Okay, that wraps it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in from wherever you are around the world. Thanks for watching or listening. We appreciate you and we thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.